so that start collecting deep dive, Russ is going to be covering probably one of the fastest armies to paint, and we're going to make it one of the cheapest armies to buy too. We're covering Nurgle.
Yeah, I've gone a little bit. It's a bit of a weird one, this, because although technically it should feel cheap, it's probably the most expensive one I've done in this series.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, which I'll explain in a minute. But basically, in this series, talk about start collecting sets and collecting a new army that can be competitive. Now,
On a budget.
yeah. Now the problem is for Nurgle to be competitive, you need great and clean ones and trees. So that adds a significant cost to the army. But in terms of start collecting now, what I've actually done is I've utilised two different start collecting sets for Nurgle because they've got two because they're spoiled. So you've got the Maggotkin, which has got the Lord of Blights, 5 Blightkings and 2 Pascal Blight Lords. And then obviously start collecting Demons of Nurgle, which is like pound for probably one of the best savings you can get in a box set available. So that's got 3 Nurglings, 10 Plaguebearers, Herald, and 3 Plague Drones in it. So really nice. It's got 4 units in there essentially. So you could do slightly differently. You could ignore the mortals and not bother with any of the Rotbringer stuff. Personally, I like the variation in the units, and I'm basing this on an old Nurgle army that I took to Adepticon, where I use a Lord of Afflictions and a big unit of drones. So that's why I've got both in it. So they're the two sets. And in terms of the list is let me just turn that off. Is this one? So this one is a little bit unusual because it's not set in stone, and you might play around with it. I don't think it's particularly great. It depends what you want to do with it. So it's basically a great and clean one. And obviously he would have the bell. I haven't done any options or anything like that. It's just chuck the units into a calculator roughly, so you can play around with this once you've got this. If you do this as an army, a Poxbringer, Herald of Nurgle, 2 Lord of Afflictions, 30 Plaguebearers, 2 units of 5 Blightkings, 6 drones, and 6 Nurglings, which comes out at 1940. Just those units on their own. Obviously, there's no Lord of Blights in there, which you could swap a Lord of Afflictions out. You might put some endless spells in there. So there's some options. It's not set in stone, but essentially, it's the core is 30 Plaguebearers, units of 5 Blightkings, and then because you've got, I've bought an extra box of Plaguebearers. You could buy more demons and more great and clean ones and just leave the mortals at home, but I personally quite like having the models, and I think the Lord of Afflictions makes the drones particularly good. But yeah, that's the collection of models. So it comes out of start collecting Maggotkin, which saves £32.50 from retail. The start collecting Demons of Nurgle times 2, which saves £40 retail, so that's £80 saving in that as well. A great and clean one, a box of Blightkings, a box of Plaguebearers, and 3 Trees of Nurgle, which is something that pushes the cost up significantly because you need to have, I would say 3 is the max you need, but you could buy 1, but you're generally going to need 3. Now the other thing with this army, it doesn't have any summoning because you've used all the models, so you'd only bring back dead units as they die. You might bring them back. So one of the things you could do is not have the Nurglings in the list, and instead of the Nurglings, put in like the Lord of Blights. I mean, I would personally probably want another great and clean one because they're so cheap for what they do.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of play around, but obviously a great and clean one, I think it's about 70 odd pounds retail.
Yeah, 72 discounted.
So they're quite expensive. Good kit, but obviously if you have multiple of them, you start pushing the army up into the £400-500 mark. So it is £372 retail, this army. You do save £112 utilising these start collecting. So it's a little bit more expensive than I'd want to be. I think it's just that Nurgle is one of those armies that if you want to have the summoning and you have the trees, it will cost you money purely because the Great and Clean one's so pivotal. You probably want more than one anyway. But it does give you...
It's less elite as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to do a non-elite army on a budget, and by definition, that just gets more tricky.
Yeah, they're quite cheap. The units are very cheap. So like you look at like 5 Blightkings is only 140 points. 30 Plaguebearers is 300 points. It's hard to, and it sounds weird when you say that a Nurgle they're elite, right? Because they're chaos and but they're really not. You get so much stuff in the army. I mean, I've really pushed characters in to try and get to the 2,000 point mark, and I'm still 1940. So still not really there. I think it's solid. I mean, this has got a big unit of drones that you buff with the Lord of Afflictions. The reason I got 2 is purely because I think you get 2 in the set, and I'm like, well, if you build 1, you can convert the other with the Blight King bits. And I like the idea of having 2 of him because he is a very good character. And he does buff. They do buff the drones, so I do think they're solid. Great and Clean one with the bell gives you the whole +3 move. The tree gives you run and charge. You basically alpha strike with the plague drones. Take objectives with the Plaguebearers and the Blightkings, and that's basically it. Really, it's a solid army, and you get an awful lot of models for the money. Really,
yeah, you do.
I think the army's got 161 wounds in it, and I've still got points left over. So it's pretty ridiculous when you think how much that's going to actually take to get through that, especially if it's Nurgle.
Realistic wounds, yeah, that's 200 wounds, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
Without healing being factored in, so actually with healing and your after save and some armor somewhere, that's a really, really resilient force.
Yeah, and I think for the start collecting sets, this one almost didn't make my group of armies actually, purely because you Nurglings you can take or leave. There isn't a lot of resale value in the stuff you're not going to use. So if you decide you didn't want the Lord of Afflictions, they don't really sell that well because people don't tend to use them very much. I think you don't really. You have to go outside of the boxes to get your characters, your big monstrous characters, where you look at like the stone horns in the Beastclaw Raiders or the Flesh Eater one.
Yeah.
You get your heroes or monsters in the sets themselves.
Yep.
So it immediately makes your army expensive. If the Start Collecting Demons had a Great and Clean one in it, it would be amazing. But it's like a,
they need £100 fancy box version, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. And so, but it is still a great way, because you do save £40 on the Start Collected Demons and Nurgle, so it's still a good saving. I mean, you could argue that you could go for 3 of those and 2 Great and Clean ones, and you probably get a better army out of it. But I do think it's nice to have the variation. And they do have 2 Start Collecting sets, so I thought I'd utilise both. I think from a painting point of view, Blightkings are great as well.
Yeah. It sounds like a weird thing to say, but this might be, Blightkings aside, might be the fastest to paint army out of all the Start Collecting ones we've considered. Because I know myself how quick Nurgle is. Nurgle is one of the fastest armies. Like Nurgle and Lizards probably are both the 2 at the top for the quickest armies to get done. Not just like, oh, it's on the table, it's acceptable, but get done looking amazing in pretty much no time.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on how I painted my Nurgle with an airbrush and stuff, it was quick then, whereas that's without me factoring in now that you just get Death Guard spray, right? And just spray all of your Plaguebearers Death Guard green,
and contrast,
then get your airbrush. Get your airbrush, do some OSL on like the bellies with some Warlock purple, and then just dry brush it and wash it, and then they're pretty much done, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to go super super quick, you could spray them Wraithbone and then just put Plaguebearer of contrast over them, and then put the Blood for the Blood God, or for Vulpus Pink for reddish, and then Blood for the Blood God on there. Because
spray them black, spray them another colour from above. Yeah,
I mean, because you if you wanted to go, it depends how much you wanted to put in them, but dry brushing, goo effects, blood effects, they just make the army look great. Weathering powders, and it's just so easy to put on. It's very relaxing as well, painting that way, because you don't have to be neat.
It's lovely.
So
absolutely,
Unclean
ones 3 hours at a high level.
Yeah. I mean, it dry brushes so well. I think even in the actual guide that you can get on YouTube, he dry brushes it basically. I dry brush mine. It looks fine.
Me
too. Don't tell it's dry brushed, but
mine's looking at me from across the room. He looks sick.
So I've got a 4-year-old one in the cabinet behind me that I've still not finished painting. He's just base coated in Death Guard green. But yeah, so start collecting Nurgle. Gives you a nice selection of models. One thing I would say about the Rotbringer one is the character is quite sought after, because I know that Darren Latham did a paint along with that model as well, so people just want that model. At the moment, it's sold out at GW in the UK. Looking at the website, it's not available; it's out of stock. So if you bought it now, then you might find you get a good price for that on eBay. If you only ordered one, because you only get one. If you didn't want him, or you bought 2 of this set to get your 5, because actually, if you to get the extra 5 Blightkings, you could buy this twice, and then sell the Puskers, or have them as a unit in your army, and then sell the Lord of Blights. And if you got £15 for him, you would effectively make the box cost the same as the Blightkings. If you got 15 quid for him, I think he's 17.50 brand new. So it's it might be a bit difficult to get that much for him second hand. But if you did, then you would you'd almost break even. So it's worth doing. But you gain a unit of Puskar or Blight Lords out of it. So I would say that any army that you're buying a unit that comes in a start collecting, you're almost always better off buying the start collecting and just getting rid of what you don't want.
Particularly if you've got a gaming group or a group of bros in a WhatsApp.
Yeah, what you'll find is a lot of people want the same models that you want.
It's always best to be on the other side of the
be the guy snatching up all the Shadow and Pain Slash sets.
So snatching up plague drones. Can you imagine if you did a plague drone army, you could absolutely you could properly budget out.
Yeah, so this is like one of the other start collecting sets that I think adds a lot of value. Now, people who've been following the series will notice there isn't a single order start collecting set in the series, and that is purely because I really struggled to find an army that benefited from those sets. That from a competitive play point of view. I looked at a lot of them, and there's a lot of, I won't use the word like chaff, but there is a lot of flack. There's a lot of stuff in there you just don't want. You could. I mean, I've written a Namati Frawless, so you could argue that the Deepkin one's fine, but even that, it's got Soul Render. Don't really take that, and then it's got 3 eels, fine, but it's just not worth. The stuff you get with the eels isn't worth it, in my opinion. The ones that were released for Broken Realms Marathi, there are some really good ones in there for order, but they're not like available. Once they've gone, they're gone pretty much, I think. So you just, unless you got those as they were released, like Von Breck's one's particularly good. The sort of the Deepkin one with the sharks and the king is a really good one, but you can't get that anymore really. So I didn't want to talk about those. So it's all death, chaos, and destruction, I'm afraid. So.
Start collecting daughters isn't too bad, is it? I think for 46 quid from Element, I
did do one with the Shadow and Pain and the daughters one. I might do that because as another video, because I think Shadow and Pain's still widely available. That if you're watching this at Christmas, you would be able to do it. So yeah, that's a fair shout. I'll do another one on Daughters of Cain because I think that is the only one that myself viable. I think would be viable. And
if people want us to look at that, I was just going to say, if you want us to look at the other armies with the same approach but without start collectings, we are super happy. If you want to challenge us to budget out within Stormcast or whatever it is, then let us know below. Give us a challenge and we'll rise to it.
I've just had a quick look at the Seraphon stuff as well. The Seraphon one doesn't look too bad with start collecting skinks, but it makes me want to throw up in my mouth because it's like pterodons.
This
pterodons, Bastillodon.
To be honest, it would have involved me taking the cellophane off my Seraphon book, so I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. No, the start collecting Seraphon with you've got 2 boxes, one at 46, one at 51. The 46 one is got a Carnosaur and some Saurus dudes in it. And the other one is actually not bad because it's 10 skinks, a hero, a Bastillodon, and 3 pterodons, which I imagine they're quite good. I really dislike Seraphon as an army, so I don't know. But at £51 from Elements, you've got quite a lot there.
You got some options. I mean, the generic recipe of find a start collecting with a monster in it and build the monster list, that is viable pretty much in for half the armies in the game. So if you want to build the Magmadroth or the Carnosaur or whatever it is, and those
Bundle
armies
is
are
a-
fun.
Yeah, you've got that's I think where you'd probably go with it. I mean, I don't know whether it would be competitive still, but I think the Thunder Lizard list with the Carnosaurs and the Bastiladons, you save some money there, and but I'm not delving into that Seraphon.
Yeah, I'm not going to write a Seraphon army, so it's not on the head right now.
We challenge the listeners, viewers. If you want to write a Seraphon army using those, let us know what we've missed out. But unfortunately, none of us really like Seraphon.
The real challenge is write a list that Russ wants to play from that book, and if you do it, we'll send you a prize.
The real challenge is getting any one of us to care about Seraphon. That's the real challenge.
I do it kind of.
We're going to get so many no, we don't like. They are popular, but I think for me, the problem I've got with them is the models just don't. I think I'm still sore about Tomb Kings, so they should have gone in the bin.
Get to the root of it.
If Tomb Kings and Bretonians got binned, Lisbon should have got binned, and the only reason they didn't is because kids like dinosaurs, and that's why I'm going to leave it like that. So we'll thanks for watching.
So if you disagree with Russ, get in the comments below.
And
you really saved that, Russ. Don't, guys.
Yeah.
You're going to get negative comments. You don't just want to be hating, but here's me hating.
Russ is like, hold my beer.
Hey, it's gone too far. I might as well just go straight in. Once you've gone so far, you might as well just go straight, even deeper. It's just,
never go full Seraphon.
There is also probably a Sylvaneth list out there, but they are they're a little bit just lagging behind the curve out there. There's a triple Durthu something list.
Yeah, I think
they need Kurnoths in that list.
I think the Seraphon stuff, you could do a list with that. I mean, I think you definitely could do something with the Sylvaneth. Are they going to be competitive? Seraphon, most likely they would be because they're Seraphon, but you probably have to buy a load of fine cast models that you don't really want to paint, and I don't want to look at the Elements because I don't want to throw up.
Elements got a really good Sylvaneth bundle, which is just like plugging it, which is the Start Collecting Sylvaneth set, which is a Tree Lord that can make an Ancient, a Durthu, or a normal Tree Lord, some Dryads and a Branch Wraith. But they've also got with the element bundle, they get a box of Kurnoth Hunters and a box of Tree Revs, which then make your spites, and that's £94, which saves you just over 20 quid.
So if you did 2 of those, that would give you a decent.
Yeah. So that's the element bundle. So that's obviously not our thing, but that's not bad. They've got quite a few of those in stock at the moment.
I'll have a think about order. I'll put some thought into it and see if there's something I can come up with, even if it doesn't involve a start collecting.
Yeah, I think these are a lot easier for me because they're all stuff that I've spent time and energy and thought collecting because it's what I want to collect. But I've never really looked at order as a faction, to be honest. But Daughters of Cain, definitely, if you can get Shadow and Pain still. So there's definitely an army with the snakes. So I'll do that as a video because that's an army that I've got myself. So cool.
Thanks very much, guys.
Well, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again on the next one.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers, guys.